Centers for Disease Control declared last week that racism is a serious public health threat in America. It acknowledged something that researchers have found for decades. On nearly every measure of health, African Americans are more prone to serious disease and premature death. The coronavirus pandemic has provided devastating evidence of this. Black Americans have died of COVID-19 at twice the rate of whites, and so far are being vaccinated at a dramatically lower rate. Poverty and unequal access to high-quality health care play a role in these disparities, but this is not a matter of genetics. Harvard researcher David Williams has spent his career showing what the CDC now recognizes. Racism itself can be a killer.
The story will continue in a moment.
Imagine a fully loaded jumbo jet with 220 passengers and crew taking off and crashing today. And the same thing happened every day next week, and every day next month, and every day for the rest of the year. That's exactly what is occurring when we say there are racial disparities in health in the United States. Over 200 Black people dying prematurely every single day.
Dr. David Williams, who is...
So about 10 years ago, when I was in college, I just started fainting pretty regularly. And the very first doctor I saw kind of ignored everything that I said because she wanted to focus on an STD panel because she was convinced that I had tertiary syphilis at the age of 22. I said, don't you have to have that for like 10 years before that would happen? And she said, yeah. I was like, well, I wasn't having sex when I was 12. She refused to believe me. She refused to believe that at that point in my life, I'd only had one partner. And she just was adamant, would not look at any other options. And then at some point in time, I just stopped going to the doctor and I dealt with not knowing what was wrong with me. 2 years ago, I was at work. I couldn't make sentences. I couldn't read. I got rushed to the hospital. They thought I was having a stroke. And it was only then that they determined that I have complex migraines, which mimic other things.
I had my gallbladder removed. I noticed after I left the hospital, I was in a lot more pain than I thought I should be in. By the fifth day, I was not able to keep any food down. I had a fever. It was about 103. I reached out to the surgery team. He was just so dismissive. He wouldn't run any tests. I came home and emailed my doctor. She made an appointment at a hospital. So they did the proper blood work and everything and determined that I was septic. The doctor told me once I made it to the hospital, like you couldn't have survived another night like that.
I had to get a laparoscopic procedure. I remember sitting in the bathroom and feeling like something was falling out. What I saw like protruding, I was like terrified. So we went to the ER. The supervising doctor was able to remove it. It was like a curved metal thing. And the resident comes down and it's a young white girl. She was just, as a matter of fact, like, oh, don't worry. It was sterile when we put it in. There was no regard for, hey, that was put in on Thursday and it's not meant to stay there. A couple of days later, I'm still feeling pain. And I called the doctor's office. The doctor calls back and she goes, well, I don't want to give you any more opioids because I don't want you to develop a habit. Huh? I don't know. I just felt like it was disrespectful. It was dismissive.
I felt that it had a lot to do with me being a Black woman. And I just wasn't in a position to really advocate for myself at that time. I was sick. I was barely standing up.
I know 100% that the treatment that I would have gotten, the dismissiveness of my symptoms and my health history and not believing me would not have happened had I not been a woman of color.
I think race, sometimes is a roadblock for some people where they're not able to feel empathy. I would have felt better if she had a reaction, to it, and asked me how I was doing.
I have a 7-year-old who I've taken him. He had a very severe medical issue and we were repeatedly ignored over and over and over and over again. And it took me bringing his white father to repeat what I'd been saying for the 3 previous appointments for them to take it seriously.
I've been so terrified of getting sick because I don't want to end up needing a doctor, needing to go into a hospital. Like the thought of it gives me so much anxiety. If I end up there again, there's no way that I'm gonna survive. Like I got lucky this time.
My dad got really, really sick from COVID, and he was in the ICU for 10 days. And for me, there was a fear because, at this point, nobody's able to go in. And I can't advocate for my dad. I don't know what his experience is. So it is a fear of like, how are they going to treat him? You don't want to have to, if you're ever that sick, to put your life in the hands of somebody who might not even care about your life.
As we just heard, there's a deep distrust for the